Hello, everybody. Welcome into Bills Weekly here on FingerLakes1.com. I am Paul Russo, joined as always by Jim Senecropi and Kyle Evans. We're here to recap and discuss the deflating loss on Monday Night Football to the Broncos. We'll also look ahead to the Week 11 matchup against the New York Jets. And, oh, by the way, a little bit of breaking news this morning. The firing of Ken Dorsey as offensive coordinator. All that and more. But first, quick thank you to our sponsor of the podcast today, Cicino's Pizzeria and Restaurant. Visit Cicino's Pizzeria and Restaurant at their original Waterloo location or their all-new renovated location in Geneva. Dine in, take out, delivery, catering, and banquets, or online at Cicinos.com. Live, laugh, and eat well. It's the Italian way. All right, guys. Which lane do we want to start today? Do we want to go with the game first or the Ken Dorsey news?
I'd just like to say that I feel so bad for those Bills fans that waited all day yesterday, then got in their cars and drove sometimes, as many as 3 hours to Highmark Stadium, and then sat there and watched that game, and then had to leave and drive home and go to bed at 3:30 in the morning, and then on top of that, it's Tuesday the next day. They got to go to work.
Yeah.
And they wake up before they go to work, and they realize that their team, which has never won a Super Bowl in the entire franchise history, now has the same record as the Raiders, the Colts, and the Saints.
Yeah, not great. I'll go to you, Kyle, I guess, on this one.
See, Kyle's a diehard Bills fan. I'm not. I root for the Bills. They're our local team here at Finger Lakes One. But I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a fan. I'm more of a Giants fan. I was rooting for the Giants when they faced the Bills in the Super Bowl. Wide right, I was happy when that kick missed.
Right.
Kyle's a lifelong Bills fan.
Yeah.
Granted, his life has been shorter than mine, but it's been a rough go. And now when they finally have this team that's going to contend for Super Bowls every year in, year out, Kyle might want to make plans for January because he might not be able to watch his team even play in the playoffs.
I was going to say, Kyle, what are the thoughts for you when you woke up today?
I'll use one word, stunning, because this season started with very high expectations. As you mentioned, this team should be a Super Bowl contender, and they're far from it. As you just mentioned, they're tied with teams that you would have never thought 10 games into the year. And when you look at a game like last night, you thought, all right, maybe this is the game where they get back on track. They got a bye week coming up in, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? And maybe they could build some momentum heading into that bye week. But then they come out and they continue to look the same way on offense. They continue to look the same as a whole. I mean, the penalties, the mistakes, everything that just continues to happen. It just seems like there's no adjustments. There's no positive energy going with this team. And I do truly believe last night was the game that basically ended their season. I don't think they make the playoffs. I get it. They can still, obviously have a chance. I think it's going to take a 5-2 record over the 7 games to have a chance. But with the AFC the way it is this year and all the teams so combined in terms of wins, I think it's going to be very tough.
9-8 ain't going to cut it, especially with some of the tiebreakers. They need to go 5-2 rest of the way to get to 10 wins, and
this is their hardest part of the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, so they got the Jets. Before coming into this week, we said, okay, they got the Broncos and the Jets, and then the schedule gets hard. They got to win both these games, and then go from there. But they lost the first of the 2 at home.
Yep.
And now they got the Jets at home. Whew.
The team
then it's Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers at Miami, and the Patriots. They play at home too. Try to find 5 wins out of that.
It is the third toughest remaining schedule in the NFL.
Yeah, and if you care about stats, ESPN has them 33% chance to make the playoffs, which I think that's generous with the schedule that's ahead. So they didn't take care of business against teams they should have beat, and now they're in this position to where they're going to have to play their best football, and it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
Just to point out further how deep they are in terms of playoff hopes, these are the teams that are 2 games clear of the Bills in the AFC. So they need to lose 2, and the Bills need to win 2 just to catch and be even with these teams I'm going to mention. You got the Chiefs, of course, the Dolphins, then the Ravens, Steelers, Browns, Jaguars, and then teams that are 2 clear in the NFC, not that it matters for playoffs, but just to show how poor this season's been going. You got the 49ers, the Lions, the Eagles, but then you also have the Seahawks, the Cowboys, and the Vikings. It's a second tier. And then, those teams that are 2 up in the AFC, they're also a game or a half a game behind the Texans and the Bengals. And, of course, tied with the Raiders and the Colts.
Yeah, the Bills are one of 5 AFC teams has 5 wins. 4 AFC teams has 6 wins. And 2 AFC teams have 7 wins. And then if you want to look at the 4-win teams, there's 3 of them.
Right behind them.
1 game behind them.
Yeah. Matter of fact, they lose to the Jets next week. They flip in the AFC East standings.
Yep.
And the Bills open up 7-point favorites. I don't get it.
Yeah. They haven't, what was the stat? They haven't covered a spread in their last 4 primetime games or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, they just, I don't know, it's just bad all around.
It's going to be interesting, and I'll save my Jets questions, I guess, for
I don't know if it is going to be interesting. I think it's like a done deal.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll table the question I have until we get to the Jets stuff. Let's continue on with Monday night, the recap here. Let's start with the game itself, and then what got us to, I think, this morning with Ken Dorsey getting fired, because it was. Kyle, you want to talk about stunned? I thought it was a just deflating game. If you are a Bill, if you're a Bills fan, front office member, you name it, because frankly, we all thought, in at least us 3 in this room last week, of varying degrees, we thought that they would at least get the win. And when I was watching them, in my opinion, last night, they just, even when they were winning, the one time that they were up,
Yeah, with a
With
minute to go.
1:55 to go in the game in the fourth quarter.
it just didn't look like they were just kind of in it. Like they just, it felt like a team that was very, I guess, despondent of the situation in a way.
Well, I think it was a situation where they always thought they could win the game, but they kept making mistake after mistake after mistake.
Well, and that was, I think, the question that I want to get to, right, is when you look at the mistakes, right, those, right, when you fumble a handoff, for example.
Which was Josh Allen's fault.
Right, you can't blame a coach there. That's player issue going on right there. And I don't know. I think maybe we can get this in a couple of talking points, right? But it just seemed like, especially on offense, it was a team that, frankly, I thought put on cruise control most of the night and hoped that, just kind of leaving it there got them to their destination at the end of the day.
Yeah, I would say that last night didn't feel like a Ken Dorsey issue. It felt like a team simply not doing things that they should do, executing-wise. Like, they had 4 turnovers. I get it, the Broncos, I don't know if you guys know this, the Broncos only scored 6 points off from the Bills' turnovers.
Yeah.
The Bills actually scored 7 off from the Broncos' only turnover. So that's crazy that they still had a chance to win despite losing the turnover battle 4-1. But it just seemed like the same thing. The offense not in sync. Dalton Kincaid drops a ball on what would have been a first down. Gabe Davis allows one to go through his hands that was, I think, would have put them inside the red zone if I remember correctly. Just little things like that an NFL team should be able to make catches and not have 12 men on the field at the end of the game. Just little stuff like that. It's just been a rough season all around.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Denver also missed a field goal,
Bills,
2
yeah.
extra points.
Yep.
They were trying to give the Bills the game, and the Bills just didn't take advantage.
The fundamentals. To go back to, I know it's kind of cliched, right? But at the end of the day, fundamentals are what gets you just off the block in the right way, and it just didn't happen last night.
And James
No way
Cook
around
fumbles on the first play of the game,
Yeah.
and then goes
Then they bench him.
for 16 plays, and then he comes out and he's their best player.
Yeah, like if they let him, dude, you made a fumble. That's fine. You're still our guy.
And
Run the ball.
to back that up, first snap of his career, he fumbled. It took him 240 more snaps for him to have a second, which happened last night.
Yeah, and then they benched him.
Yeah, that's
And
what.
then Gabe
that's
Davis
the
doesn't
thing.
get benched for literally not catching a ball right to him.
Then he comes in and like Aikman's like, they really, he's really fired up now, because they benched him for fumbling. No, like obviously you could run against Denver, and for the first 3 possessions after that fumble, they didn't run it with Cook. Cook wasn't in there to run it. And then they put him in there. He had 109 yards.
On 12 carries.
I mean, to me, if there's one thing to be upset with Dorsey, it's that, and it's that like not sticking with what's working. It's almost to me felt like, we can't run it too much because we got to make sure that we pass it to Diggs and that we're still the high flying Buffalo Bills.
And I don't even think Diggs led the team in targets even yesterday. If I
No, he didn't.
remember
It was
right.
Gabe Davis and Dalton Kincaid tied with 6.
Yeah.
And Trayvon Diggs puts out a tweet
Yeah.
that Stefan's should get out of Buffalo, so that's not going to help either.
To back something you brought up earlier, Jim. I'm a Commanders fan. Be transparent about that. Trayvon Diggs is the captain of the burnt toast squad, so he has no room to talk because this is where I do want to give the Broncos 1 inch of credit. Pat Surtain Jr. is one hell of a freaking quarterback.
Yep.
He, dare I say, probably is going to be better than his father. But that portion's here and over there. Fact of the matter is, he held Diggs when he was on to 1 reception for 11 yards, and that was it. Other than that, when he was on, it was shut down. And in that situation, yeah, I think that's where you do see Kincaid, Davis, whoever have to step up. And, Kincaid, outside of 1 drop, I thought did. 5 receptions, 51 yards, a touchdown, like the only touchdown obviously through the air for the Bills. And he was, to be honest with you, on that play did a great job. He found himself literally wide open by himself, and Josh was able to find him and get the score.
Yeah, it's so weird to me when we look at the box score every week. I mean, last week, Gabe Davis had 0 catches,
Right.
0 yards, and then he's their leading receiver in terms of yards this week.
Yeah.
There's just no consistency or no flow in this offense, and it still, to me, is very predictable. They don't do anything differently. It's just the same boring offense. So I'm hoping that Joe Brady can step in. Obviously, it's not going to be a major difference, but maybe make it more unpredictable. Maybe do some more creative play calls instead of the same boring offense.
Yeah, or like I say, run the ball last night. You don't need to pass it for the sake of passing. They couldn't stop the run. Latavius Murray had 68 yards rushing. James, that was what was working last night, and there was no need to go away from that or to wait so long to figure out that you were going to be able to do that. I mean, they really got off to the slow start offensively, which let Denver be in the game. And then, all the times the Bills shot themselves in the foot and everything that happened resulting in Denver being able to kick a last-second field goal twice.
Yeah, I mean, and Josh Allen only had 13 yards rushing as well. And we talk about how, maybe you want him to pull the reins in slightly, but you have to. He does have to go every now and then on these runs. There was a couple plays last night where I'm watching. I'm like, he has a lane just available. Just go for the 10 yards and accept it. And again, I think it kind of goes back to Jim to a little bit what you allude to, and something that we've talked about, right? Is the fact that there's just this perceived pressure to get the ball to whether it's Diggs or one of the other receivers. And it puts, frankly, the team and himself in these bad positions where mistakes, turnovers are going to happen more times than not.
To me, he's starting to become just like a pure pocket passer. It kind of reminds me of Kirk Cousins. He just stands in the pocket. He can move a little bit to his left and to his right, but he doesn't take, there's a 3rd and 2 almost to the 50-yard line in the 3rd quarter last night. You could see he had a lane to run, and he could have actually even ran out of bounds, and he just doesn't take the lane. It's like he's so mentally everything's changed in his head from, I can't run anymore. They want me not to run. So he doesn't even take the risk, it seems.
Meanwhile, Russell Wilson was running more often than not when things broke down. He had a chance, and I think it comes down to 2 things. Obviously, careless, ridiculous turnovers and mistakes and penalties. But Sean Payton outcoached the hell out of Sean McDermott. You know, one thing I noticed was the Bills were getting a lot of pressure on Wilson. So in the second half, they started, I don't know if this was in the playbook or if it was something they kind of ad hoc threw in there, but, you know, Wilson would evade the pressure and shuffle pass ahead to a leaking out wide receiver. And that was what basically won them the game. They did that on several key third downs.
I'll say that too.
Like a third nine, I think there was.
And so that was an adjustment. And they did it more than once, so the Bills didn't like adjust to stop that either. And so it seemed to me that Wilson was able 9 times out of 10 to evade the pressure just long enough to either run or kick off that shuffle pass. And then you throw in a couple, you know, deep balls downfield.
Yeah.
That Cortland Sutton catch was unreal.
The touchdown catch?
Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. And it's almost like the Bills gave up on it. Like they, if a little more pressure on Sutton could have made that a non-catch.
I mean, it's in the advanced stat era, which is only a handful of years old at this point, really still. It is it's the number one toughest catch that's been recorded.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Huh. And, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you see it more, I think, in college only because you have to have the 1 foot down thing in college. But, yeah, you bring up a good point, right? It's one of those things where, you know, if one of those secondary guys is remotely near him, as soon as that ball touches his fingertips, you shove him. You don't even give him the opportunity to drag, you know?
It also might prevent him from being able to bring the ball to the ground.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
But it was, it's just amazing because the Bills were a better football team. The best team always wins, but man, you know, Denver really optimized every bit of that game to be able to pull it off. And by all rights, they shouldn't have. You know, they had 12 men on the field, and he missed the field goal, and it gave him a second chance, and Lutz knocked it right down the middle and sent the Bills to 5-5.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second because the bright spot, again, for the Bills ended up being their defense for the most part, except for what ends up becoming the glaring play of the night, the 12 men on the field. And
that wasn't Ken Dorsey's fault.
No. We'll get we will get to that definitely, but that's a play though that Denver has been running all year. It's a, you know, rush the guys on the field type thing. And I will be honest, when I was watching the game and the flag flew, I didn't even think about 12 men. I thought honestly if anything was going to be encroachment or something like that on the Bills. It's the way you always see how the field
I was watching pretty closely because I'm like, geez, you know, any penalty on Denver, game's over.
Right.
And they're rushing in. You think maybe a false start. But, nope, 12 men on the field.
And Kyle, right, and Kyle, you were the one who initially brought up how it's something that Denver's kind of just done all year is this rush tactic. And how you kind of allow that one to kind of slip through the cracks is beyond us. I know you were looking earlier before we went live at trying to figure out who in theory could have been that 12th man even, stuff like that. But just an ultimate shot in the foot moment of the Bills season. And maybe just the way it's kind of been all year, right? Is this encaptured in that 4-second time frame?
Yeah, so the Bills had 4 days of practice leading up to this game because they gave them 2 off days for the long week. And Sean McDermott says after the game that they practiced that play 3 times. Well, clearly they should have practiced it a little more because if you look at that replay, they're scrambling to get off the field and they're just looking at each other very confused. It seemed like a team that was not prepared. And what does that lead to? Coaching. I think the special teams coordinator should be at fault for this, as well as Sean McDermott. Your guys should know in that situation what to do. I mean, this was a game-ending play. This was the biggest play of the game, and your guys weren't ready or knew what to do in that situation. I think that's just inexcusable, an inexcusable way. The Broncos tried to hand them that game so many times, and they just never took advantage.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos were they were a bumbling mess on special teams last night, right? 2 missed field goals, a couple of missed PATs. Really, as I call it, was actually like 1 missed PAT because, unfortunately, the pride of Syracuse, Riley Dixon, couldn't hold the snap down. But yeah, for a spot where, I mean, the game was done. I mean, they were kicking into the worst side of the stadium, right, for wind, and had been all night, and they just they shot themselves in the foot.
And remember, leading up to that, that Taron Johnson penalty is
Yeah.
what even got them into
Right.
field goal range.
Clear pass interference, though.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree with the call. I see so many fans complaining that it was a bad call. If it was your team, you'd want the call.
It was an easy call.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know that. It seems like, what was it, the last 3-4 weeks, we've had like a handful of teams run right down the field and almost win it against this Bills defense. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, and it wasn't the Denver was also able to manage things better than the Bills in the fact that they got to kick that field goal with no time left on the clock. The Bills didn't get another chance at it. The Bills. I don't think they had a timeout at the end because someone could have seen there was 12 men and called the timeout. It's disgusting. Really, it's just bad, and I don't see it getting better. I feel bad for Bills fans.
So let's fast forward to this morning. News breaks: Ken Dorsey fired. Joe Brady, quarterbacks coach, named interim OC, and it's one of those things where I guess we've been talking about it. I get it, but Ken Dorsey had like nothing to do overall in the grand scheme, but next to nothing to do with the loss last night. Could you make a couple gripes about play calling like we just, like we were talking about a few minutes ago? Sure. But for what happened last night, he wasn't the one who fumbled handoffs and threw interceptions. He wasn't the one who put 12 men out on the field. If there was anything last night, it's more on McDermott. And to me anyway, and I'm interested on your guys' thoughts on this, I think this shows maybe just how I think the blanket term would be disconnect between maybe McDermott and Dorsey there was, but maybe just lack of chemistry.
Do you think if they don't have 12 men on the field and Denver misses that field goal that Ken Dorsey is still the offensive coordinator this morning?
I do think that.
And now that's kind of stupid,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, because he just that makes it look like he's a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really what it came down to today. I mean, they're 5-5. They just lost to the Broncos at home. I think they just they felt the pressure that they needed to make some sort of move to show the world that, a change was needed. And obviously Sean McDermott wasn't going to be fired today. I guess they could have went and fired their special teams coordinator for what happened at the end of last night's game. But what is that going to do?
I don't like, so now they've lost their defensive coordinator, Leslie Frazier. When was that, a preseason?
Yeah, that was preseason.
And now their offense coordinator. And, I've seen this has worked. This type of firing has worked for the Vikings, who replaced their defensive coordinator, won 5 in a row now. But I don't like it. I don't like if it's my team. I don't like in-season firings. If it was me, it's like I would have circled the wagons, told everybody to stop talking to the press, and let's go out there and play for each other and win football games. But you don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Whether maybe Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs doesn't see eye to eye with Ken Dorsey, and it just has been percolating. But these things need to be handled internally, and it felt like a scapegoat firing to me.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I'll go into the college ranks of it quick here, 2 weeks ago when Colorado decided to swap offensive coordinators, and next thing you know, Pat Shurmur's apparently with the Buffaloes, which I had no idea, but it was a scapegoat move there for bad quarterback play, and for the past couple of weeks there, and nothing's changed for them the past couple of weeks since, and it just feels the same to me there. I agree 100% with you there, Jim. Definitely. And to back you up on that, yeah, I mean, we've seen throughout it, not just football, throughout sports where a lot of the way to handle it in-house for the time being when there's going to be a change is just you don't answer those questions when asked. You
make
you
changes
kinda
like that in the
deflect it.
offseason.
Yeah.
I think,
Right.
You make those decisions before the season starts. This is our team. This is our personnel. This is our squad, and you roll with it.
Yeah.
I don't think Ken Dorsey has. Look, what are they got? Like the 8th or ninth best offense in the NFL?
Yeah.
So that you're going to fire him?
They sit 7th in total yards and 8th in total points per game.
And
There's 32 teams in the league.
And he was interviewed for head coaching jobs this past offseason.
There's one thing we can blame him on, honestly. They only ran 4 plays last night with Josh Allen under center, and he was 4 for 4 with 61 yards and a touchdown. The other 21 attempts, they had him under shotgun. He only had 116 yards and 2 picks. He's way better under center, and it's shown the last several games. And it's weird that they go on a drive where they put him under center, and then they just shy away from it when it works so well. And that is
because they were running the ball so well. So when he's under center, that run is more of a threat.
Yeah.
So they could be running more plays with him under center.
Yeah.
I guess that could be the fault of Ken Dorsey. But other than that, I do agree that mistakes were really the big reason why they didn't win that game last night.
No team in the NFL this season has won that's had 4 turnovers or more.
Right.
So the Bill, you can add the Bills to it. They almost became the first, but they had 12 men on the field.
Yeah.
First loss at home, too, for the Bills.
Yeah, it's really disgusting. Hard to believe that all these primetime games the Bills are in, and the Broncos come in at Monday night, and it's a game there the Bills can get right, get themselves back, on the good side of the playoff picture, and they lose to the Broncos.
Yeah.
Let's have another Von Miller discussion. Played just 21 snaps again. He's getting paid all this money. He didn't play the final 10 minutes of the game last night. At this point, if he's only going to play 20 snaps a game, and he's not going to be on the field for the most important snaps of the game, then why is he out there?
Especially with all the injuries the Bills have had, you kind of need him out there. And, we saw DeMar Hamlin out in the field last night. Well, that's not a good sign for the Bills. That shows how beat up they are.
Yeah, Von Miller had his first tackle in 3 or 4 games last night, but only played 20 snaps. I'm not sure what they're doing, why they're doing this. Is he actually not 100%? If he wasn't, was he just rushed back because of all the injuries? I don't get what they're doing with Von Miller. You're paying a future Hall of Famer all this money, and he's playing 20 snaps a game.
Well, I was going to say, now, because I didn't know where you were going with that first. It kind of sounded like you were doing a bit of blame on Von, but you came back around there to where I was going to say that's on coaching at that point. Von Miller's that type of guy who, push comes to shove, he wants to be out there anyway. And I don't know if maybe he's got that, what I will call the veteran's edge taken away from him in Buffalo, where, say he was back in Denver, he could probably get away with telling whether Sean Payton or Vic Fangio, whoever might have been the head coach at that given time, put me out there and they'll let him go do it. I don't know, but I'm with you. I mean,
remember the Bills had 10 days in between games too, because they played last night on a Monday, so they had extra time, extra rest, and he still only
bye week basically.
Yeah, still only played 20 snaps. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. And no rest for the weary, because we go into this Jets game, who they're 4-5 now at the heels of the Bills in the division, and we know what happened game 1, first game of the year, and it's going to be hard not to think a little bit that might be hanging a little bit over the team at this point, kind of going into it, because that's a Jets team that pretty much in the grand scheme of it hasn't changed all that much since week 1. And since week 1, we know it's a Bills team that on the grand scheme of it hasn't changed all that much. I mean, both are dealing with injuries on defense and stuff like that, but you aren't facing anybody different really in the grand scheme of it that you hadn't seen in week 1.
Yeah, and this is a Jets team who just lost to Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders.
Pride of Purdue.
It's just this is how crazy the NFL is. Remember, the Bills beat the Raiders 38-10.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo was starting that game though, if I'm right. Yeah. But this is just where the NFL is. You see one team beat a team, and then they lose to that team, and it's just all chaotic. So you don't know what to expect in this game. Honestly, though, I know we're going to do our predictions later. I'll give you my exact score later. But I don't think the Bills are winning this game.
Well, but you want to know you just mentioned that. You want to know the epitome of it? The Dolphins put up 70 points on the Broncos.
Right, yeah.
And the Bills beat Miami 48-20, and then Denver beats the Bills.
Yeah. Denver beat the Chiefs.
In what world is that possible? So, go. What about our predictions?
Well, I don't know, because here's the thing. I look at it as now this is literally must win in my opinion for the Bills. There is no
Well, it was a must-win against Denver, honestly.
no, and I don't disagree with that. It more or less was, but this is that last. It's whatever you want to call it, right? It's
You got to win this just to have a chance to do something improbable to make the playoffs. Where before, if they beat Denver, was a must-win where they needed to win to keep their keep ahead of the game. And they, if they beat Denver, now today we're talking about, okay, beat the Jets, and now we're on the good side of the playoff bubble, and we got this tough schedule coming up. Let's go.
Yeah.
But now it's a must-win, and because if they lose, it don't matter how many games they win coming home. It's not going to be enough.
Yeah, at that point, you have one more team you have to leap over who has complete tiebreak over you in that scenario as well.
Yeah.
This is frankly, this is their, generally last stand type thing, right? Like, there is no way coming around this. This is their Richmond falling.
The Bills have the worst record in conference. They're 2-5 against the AFC. So if there are tiebreakers at the end of the year, the Bills aren't going to be in because of tiebreakers. So they've dug themselves in a hole.
That's why they got to get 10
ways.
to win. They got to get to 10 wins. 9-8 is not going to cut it.
Yep.
I mean, here's the deal. You have Zach Wilson under center, who, no matter what, he's going to be out there. He's completed 59.8% of his passes. Not a ton of yards in the grand scheme of 1,863. 5 TDs, 6 interceptions. Your other pieces out there, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, pedestrian numbers in the grand scheme of it for them.
Getting a little better, though.
Right. But really where this is interesting is the Jets have the 6th best defense in the NFL. 323 yards allowed a game, 138 on the ground, 169 through the air. It's a balanced attack on their defense. You say what you want about any of the teams, through this stretch with them, but they haven't given up a ton of points overall, and that's the reason why they just have kind of just been in these games till the very end for the most part.
Yeah, they've held some of the best quarterbacks in the league to not good stats. I mean, look at Jalen Hurts when he faced that defense, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen in week 1. So, yeah, this defense is for real. I think the Bills are in trouble, honestly.
And it's pretty indicative. Jim, you talked about the 7-point line. The over-under is only 40. I mean, that's pretty telling what they think, what the line makers anyway think about this game for the week.
Yeah, it's going to be similar to their week 1 matchup where, 38 total points scored?
Yeah, 22-16.
But I think the Bills do win this game. I think that, they should have won the Denver game.
Yeah.
Like, the turnovers combined with the 12 men on the field, combined with, Russell Wilson just being magical. They should. We'll see how the change in offensive coordinator affects it, But I think the Bills win this. I'm going to paint you a pleasant picture now for Bills fans because we've really been harping on them.
Yeah.
But the Bills beat the Jets, and now they go on the road to the Eagles. If there's some way that they can pull off that victory, they go into the bye week now at 7-5. And that is not that's not a horrible spot to be. So you're asking to beat the Jets at home and then beat an Eagles team in Philadelphia. That's going to be tough. But if they can pull that off, all of a sudden they now enter the home stretch after a bye by going to the Chiefs, who are totally beatable.
They beat them in the regular season last year in Kansas City.
Yeah, and the Broncos beat them.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are beatable. The Chiefs' offense is not what it used to be.
They got shut out in the second half. Remember in Germany?
Yeah,
They didn't score against the Dolphins defense, so the Bills scored 48 on.
So now you go down to Dallas after that game, and that's a winnable game. Like, nobody has confidence in the Cowboys to win against better teams. And then you got the Chargers coming to Highmark, the score of that game will probably be 62-60.
It's in L.A., actually.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is in L.A. But the Chargers are certainly a beatable team.
Yep.
And then the Patriots at home and then at Miami. So all I'm saying is, beat the Jets this week, somehow win that game in Philadelphia, and everything will be – then you get a week off, then you can come back, and you really are kind of back in the picture. So you're up against the 8 ball, Buffalo, but win your next two and you're back. That's the way this league works. Look at, I mentioned it last week in 2001. They lost 4 straight midseason, and then they came back and they looked like they were out of it, and then they won. I don't know how many games coming home, but
Yeah.
and they made the playoffs. But on the other side of things, the last time the Bills were at or under 500 through 10 weeks in the season was Josh Allen's rookie year, and they did not make the playoffs, and that was 2018.
Yeah, so they need to go 5-2 to make it. So even if the Eagles, Chiefs are their 2 losses, beat the Jets, Cowboys, Chargers, Patriots, Dolphins, and then there's your 5-2.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that they can do it. I would prefer to see them win their next 2 rather than go into the bye week at 6-6. But beating Philadelphia in Philadelphia is a tall task. But Dallas almost did.
Yeah, inches. Dak Prescott's foot went out.
So the league is crazy, and you just got to keep your faith. Look, Denver is technically kind of back in the picture. Yeah. And you remember how people were talking about them after 2 or 3 weeks? Like They were saying Sean Payton was a joke, and that Russell Wilson was a joke, and that they were the worst team in the NFL. And, here they are. Same thing kind of with the Raiders. Remember, they fired Josh McDaniel, and they was like, this season's over.
They're 2-0 since, back to 500.
Yep. So you never know in this league, and if you're a Bills fan, just wait, focus on the next game, the Jets. Now, of course, they lose to the Jets. I mean, let's not even do this podcast anymore, right?
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I'll go here. I'm honestly on the fence about this. I do think the Bills win, but I don't think it's pretty. I don't think we come in here next Monday and it's sunshine, puppy dogs, and little baby seals. I think they win 13-10. I think it's
low scoring.
I think it's an ugly, frankly, what I would call an ugly ass game.
Well, the way the Bills defense have been playing, if I had to put a score on it, I think that it will be more similar to last night's game, and that the Bills will pull off maybe a 24-18 win.
Give me the Jets 20-16.
Man, no faith from.
Eesh. It's not good. Not good when Kyle is.
And we will not be blaming Joe Brady for this loss. It's simply because the Jets' defense is real. I mean, Jalen Hurts had 3 interceptions against this defense. Patrick Mahomes had 2. Josh Allen had 3 in week 1.
I was going to say, I mean,
they're not an amazing run defense, though.
And expect this to be the Breece Hall game. Expect to see a lot of screens, and they're going to run the ball very well. Javonte, what's his name, Williams last night, Denver's running back, 89 yards. I guess he did have 21 carries, which is crazy. But Breece Hall is much better than Javonte Williams.
Well, they also, the other kid there who's popped up now in Denver.
Laughlin?
Yeah. He had, I don't think it was great, but I know he had, I think, at least 40, I want to say. But.
And they've slowly been starting to use Delvin Cook more in the Jets' offense. So, I don't know. I just think the Bills are going to have trouble with the run game. Zach Wilson didn't beat him week 1.
True.
I mean,
I agree that the Bills' defense is as much of concern as the offense, and that's mainly due to injuries. But you can't really use that as an excuse because everybody has injuries. Yep. You got to be deep enough and strong enough for the next man up, and the Bills got pressure on Russell Wilson like crazy last night, but the Sean Payton and company exploited it.
Yeah. I mean,
Second.
And Robert Saleh, high IQ coach. No way around him.
His beard is like distracting though. I liked him better without the beard.
And don't sleep on the Texans. Went to Cincinnati. C.J. Stroud's a real deal. Big fan. I should have taken what I said on the betting pod.
I was about to say,
Should have said Texans plus 6.5.
That's what you're.
The Bills and Bengals are in a kind of almost a similar situation, except the Bengals have been playing much better as of late, but then they lost that game to the Texans. I'm sure if this was a Bengals podcast, we'd be ripping them apart, how they lost that game to
their offense.
Texans.
Their offense is banged up to no end.
But,
it's how the Bills have their injuries on defense, Bengals have their injuries on offense. It's bad.
One other, point of optimism if you're a Bills fan is all these teams in the AFC, none of them are showing that they're Super Bowl champion contenders this year. Dolphins, Bills crushed them. The Chiefs are not the same Chiefs. They're still probably the best team in the AFC, but mainly it's just experience and savviness and a little help from the officials that are doing that for them. And then the Ravens are playing a little better now, but I mean,
Lost to Cleveland, had a 13-point lead late and lost.
Yeah, they beat Cleveland, came back and stunned them, and
Jacksonville losing 37-3.
AFC's terrible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like looking for a Super Bowl contender, so
anyone can win, honestly.
So that's why the Bills could actually beat the Jets, and then somehow win that game against Philadelphia in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is probably the favorite to win the Super Bowl in all of the NFL right now.
Yep.
So it's amazing how everything can change in this league. And the Bills need to beat the Jets and then go before their bye week, pull out a victory in Philadelphia. And then everything will be kind of as good as you could hope given where we're sitting right now.
Yeah. Well, I, for one, can't wait for Cleveland, Detroit in the Super Bowl now.
Hey, why not?
Right.
This kind
Give me
of year.
Houston, Detroit.
Houston, Detroit. Are you sure?
The Texans are on the outside looking in right now for the playoffs.
Yeah, finally over 500. But credit to them, they've beaten the Bengals and they've beaten the Jaguars in Jacksonville. Remember, it was 37-17. So they have some quality wins in their 5 wins. But then it seems like against teams that aren't probably as good as them, they don't win.
The Falcons.
Yeah, they don't beat the
Colts.
teams. They don't beat the teams that they should be taking. It's like the Bills. They don't beat the teams that should be beaten. But then they get some wins against very tough teams.
I will say this again because I've said it a million times, man. Thank God they didn't call that pass interference in the end zone in that Giants game against Darren Waller. Otherwise, that would be another loss. Thank God Chris Godwin didn't catch that Hail Mary. I mean, because it would be a totally different situation now. The Bills still have a chance, but got to win. Got to win next week. And that's another primetime game against the Jets?
No, 4:25.
4 o'clock game, so they're playing in the late window.
The Bills have 4 straight 4:25 games coming up, but obviously the bye's mixed in the third week.
Right.
So, yeah, they're going to be playing at 4:25 a lot over the next month.
I like it, and I do like the Bills out of prime time. This with like the NFL schedule makers haven't really done them too much of a favor putting them in these primetime games. For whatever reason, especially when you're playing a team that's an underdog, whether it be Denver this week or the Jets in week 1 after Rodgers got hurt or the Giants, whoever it is, I think the underdog has a slight advantage in these primetime games because they just are a little more motivated maybe on the national stage. I don't know what it is, but I think the Bills will be well suited to be playing in the afternoon on Sunday for some of these upcoming games. But they do have plenty of primetime games left too, don't they?
That Chargers game's an 8 o'clock start on a Saturday night, 2 days before Christmas, actually. And then the Dolphins game still doesn't have a time. So
none of the last week of the year ones do for anybody.
well, right now they only have like one night game left, definitely.
Well, that could be good just the way it's gone this year. But
Yeah.
again, if the Jets win this week, they'll be 1/2 game ahead of the Bills in the standings.
Yeah.
So crazy.
It's insane.
Not pleasant at all.
It's
So
insane. Why does Josh Allen put on a baseball hat when he's, you know what I mean? Like a lot of guys do it, I know, but it's something totally stupid and unrelated. But when Allen's off the field, he wears a baseball. He takes his helmet off, puts a baseball hat on.
Yeah. I don't know.
Is he balding or something?
I don't know.
I'm not one to talk, but yeah.
Well, you got a nice clean shave.
Yeah, I did a very poor attempt at it on my own.
Oh, you did it yourself?
But yeah.
That
I went too low. I didn't plan on going as low as I did.
You look like Robert Saleh.
I do, don't I?
How about Josh Allen's reaction last night when he went like this, watching the kick?
Oh, jeez. I know it was almost comical, the way they lost that game.
Yeah.
Like, you can't make it up. And like I said, I opened the show by saying I felt bad for those Bills fans that made the trek to the game late on a Monday night. I mean, any East Coast Monday Night Football game is a nightmare for fans.
Yeah.
Who wants to go, especially to Buffalo this time of year at night and get home at 3:30 in the morning?
Yeah, it takes an hour at least to get out of the parking lot. That's how it was when I went. Literally an hour after the game and the traffic was still stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Before we got here, I do want to do a PSA on the traffic situation at Orchard Park. I'm begging you fans to please be careful up there. This is like the 3rd game in a row I've seen that there's been a nasty car accident. going to the stadium that has shut down Route 20, which is like the only thoroughfare through the place. Like, just please, I am begging you people, please be careful. Like, come on. I don't mean to laugh.
Did you see the fight in the stands last night?
Yeah, I did see the fight.
Yeah.
That too, going back to something that we and you actually, Jim, talked about week 2 of the season. Like, why are we
thrown
doing
down the
this?
stairs?
Yeah, like
Another guy got punched, and it was over. I can't even remember what the caption said. But
Bunch of idiots.
yeah,
It was probably over. The worst is when like another team with an opposing jersey, shows up at a game and he gets freaking.
Yeah, the funny thing, it was all Bills fans fighting, and the shout song was playing in the background.
Yeah.
Therefore, they just scored their touchdown, and they're fighting.
that has to be a gambling thing going on there, then, right?
Either that or he just spilled beer on his.
Yeah, maybe
guy's
that
grill
was
or
it.
something. Who knows? Who knows? But the fighting is ridiculous
Yeah.
at sporting events. It is absolutely ridiculous, and you go to a game and something happens, and you could end up doing jail time.
Right. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. All right. I think we need to get out of here on that note. We've been
Yeah, we'll talk more Thursday. A lot of good games coming up. if
Thursday,
you guys
betting,
realize.
the betting podcast. Tune in for that. I'm sitting. It's what you bring up Houston. I'm sitting on a potential future to bring up during that. So that's what we call a tease.
We have some good primetime games coming up, other than that Sunday night.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We got Ravens-Bengals 2 days from now in Baltimore. And then next Monday night, we have Eagles-Chiefs.
Who the Vikings play this week?
They get the Broncos on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, that's right. Broncos go back to Sunday night.
Yep.
Dobbs though.
Chance to go to 5-5. The Broncos do, but I think the Vikings probably win that game. But who knows?
Yeah, who knows is right in this crazy league.
Any given Sunday or Monday or Thursday or Saturday even coming up. So or Friday. Forgot about that. We do have like a Friday game this
Black
year.
Friday game.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. They're doing the Black Friday game. I'll be
that
out
the
of
Bills?
town.
Isn't that the Bills too?
No, it's Jets-Dolphins.
Oh, right. Yeah.
AFC battle.
They're
3
on
o'clock start.
Nice. Going up against the Egg Bowl. Love it. So, appreciate you guys as always hopping on board. Thanks everybody for listening and watching. You can find Bills Weekly anywhere here on VerlyX1.com, the FL1 YouTube channel, all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Amazon Music. And we will be back next Monday. Let's go, Buffalo.
Yeah.